Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome an accomplished professional from the Sunshine Coast in Australia, Babette Bensoussan. Babette, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ash, very much for having me on the show.
Thank you. Babette is a decision-making maverick. She's a life and leadership and business coach. She's also a competition and strategy specialist, and she's a co-author of 4 best-selling books on business analysis. So, Babette, before we talk about the work that you are doing, tell me about your own journey in brief.
Oh, goodness. So I lived in the States for a couple of years, and one of the things I noticed that women were given great respect if they had an MBA. So I came back to Australia and studied to do my MBA. I was very fortunate. I worked for companies like Levi Strauss, Apple Computers, all in the marketing area. And when I finished my MBA, I started my own firm, my own consulting practice in the area of strategic planning, competitive intelligence, and strategic marketing. And my goal was to become a boutique consulting firm that were experts in our field. And so over the past 30 years, I ran workshops and attended conferences, spoke at conferences, received numerous awards, wrote books, wrote articles, and taught in China, in Europe, America.
Yeah.
So that's been my journey. And then I received an award in 2007, and I said, oh, well, I've won the Oscar. What do I do now? So I then did a postgrad degree in counseling because I wanted to work with people a bit more. And instead, I thought, no, I'm going to become a coach instead of throwing my business expertise away. And so I went to the US, studied to become a coach. And now for the past 10 years, I've been working as a business, coach, life and leadership coach. But I'm focused on decision-making.
How wonderful.
Because I think that is where people have real problems.
Yeah, how wonderful. So let's now talk about coaching, competitive intelligence, strategy, and marketing.
Yes.
You know, the work that you do with so many individuals. My first question to you, Babette, is what common challenges do entrepreneurs face and how do you help them?
Okay. You know, it's interesting we talk about entrepreneurs, but I think every executive, every director faces the same challenges, which is how do you make a good decision?
Right.
How do you get everything together to make the right decision? And I think one of the key things I've learned, having worked with so many companies over the years, is that people tend to forget the biases and the limiting beliefs and the blind spots we bring to our decision making so that we don't see the full gamut of what is really available to us.
Right.
So I think the biggest challenge is our self-perception in making good decision, whether you're an entrepreneur, director, CEO. People think they know an industry. And I would challenge that these days. I would assume that bookstores were well aware of Amazon coming down the pipeline, hotels knew Airbnb, taxis were aware of Uber. I would challenge any CEO to say, yes, we knew, and they did nothing about it.
Great response.
They didn't see it.
Great response. Thank you. Yeah. You're also, when I was reading about you, you also talk about performance coaching. And I wanted to ask you, what is your approach to coaching and how does it differ from any other form of coaching?
It's a very good question. So my coaching is very cognitive behavior in that you have the answers. You know what you can do. So I work with people in light of what they think they can do. The thing is that what I do most is I challenge the way they think about things. So the best way is we all have what I call GALES. And GALE stands for gremlin. That's the voice in our head that says you're not good enough.
Yeah.
You're not smart enough. Then there are assumptions. I can't do this. There's interpretation. So let's say a good colleague or a colleague you work with walks past and doesn't look at you. Immediately you'll interpret, what have I done wrong? As opposed to they may have had a fight that morning, a child is sick. Then the L stands for limiting beliefs. All of these things impact the way we perform and the way we work and see the world. And I'm saying that sometimes they're limiting us in what we can and what we do and don't do.
Yeah.
So I'm very much focused on that particular area of executives or any professional I work with. Different people in different areas.
Well said. Well said. And, how do you work with some of these people to foster entrepreneurial and innovative thinking?
Okay, that's a good question also. So I said earlier that I am of the opinion that there is no executive anywhere in the world that is fully informed of what is coming down the pipeline.
Right.
So entrepreneurs and innovators also have a different kind of tunnel vision in that they believe their product is unique, that there is no one else doing anything like it, that nothing like it has ever been invented, that they're bringing something really new to the market. Both these people are not covering or not understanding what's happening in the market. And that's where competitive intelligence has always fitted in. So I have entrepreneurs who say, oh, we've got this wonderful app, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now how are you going to get to market?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Who already has leverage that you can go? A lot of people don't think. And then a question I get every entrepreneur and innovator to answer is, who is your competition? And the moment they say, I have no competition, I know they have no understanding of the market.
Well said.
Well, the thing is, Ash, a consumer, let's say you're selling to consumers. Consumers have choices whether of what utility your product or service provides. Now, they may choose another product or service that's not the same thing to against your product. So that is a competition, in fact, because you're fighting over that $100 of the consumer.
Well said. Babette, you also work with clients on decision making. You help them to understand decision making.
Yes.
The question is, how do you help clients navigate uncertainty and risk in decision making, which is very real?
Absolutely, very real. And I think you're very right in what you say. My approach is, so there are two approaches. So as a coach, sometimes I'm asked to help an organization make a better decision as a consultant. If that is the case, if an organization says, should we buy XYZ or should we enter this market niche? You need to gather and do your research, get competitive insights of what the market intends to do. It's no good telling an organization, well, here are your competitors. What we need to uncover is what are your competitors going to be doing in the next 12 months? Because you can preempt it. So you've got the organizational decision making, and then you've got the individual decision making. And that's the individual decision making is then around, should I take the job? Should I become a director? Should I study here? Should I start my own business? So there's all very different caliber of questions.
Yeah.
Very different. So to lump it in one, I have difficulty there. They're too different.
I agree.
Yeah.
You also spoke very briefly about competitive intelligence, and my next few questions are on competitive intelligence.
Sure.
My first question on competitive intelligence is, what are some common misconceptions that people tend to have in organizations about competitive intelligence?
The key one, Ash, is that competitive intelligence is about data, that it's a summary of information. That has got absolutely nothing to do with competitive intelligence.
Okay.
So competitive intelligence is a systematic, an ongoing process for analyzing the competitive environment in which an organization competes in order to further its own business goals and strategies. So, and it's to deliver actionable insights. That is very, very different to a report. So I think the best way is the first step in a good competitive intelligence project is asking the right question.
Right.
So I'll give you an example. We had the managing director of a firm. He said to us, I want you to tell me who's who in the zoo in waste oil recycling. By that stage, I knew that was a very bad question. And I said to him, what would make you enter waste oil recycling? I said to him, what decision will you be making with this information? And he said, well, I want to know, should I enter waste oil recycling? And I said to him, what would make you enter waste oil recycling? He says, well, if I can achieve an ROI of 18% in 3 years, I'm interested. So, Ash, if you answered who's who in the zoo in waste oil, you will give that CEO just a whole pile of information. Should I enter waste oil recycling and can I achieve an ROI of 18%? You're going to look at industry profitability. You're going to look what he needs to do to upgrade plant and equipment to take on waste oil. You're going to look at all the growth opportunities and you're going to look at all the threats that are there.
Right.
And so then he has a better way of making decision than who's who in the zoo in waste oil. So competitive intelligence is all about delivering an insight or insights or options that enable a decision maker to understand better what the decision involves.
Well said. And given the incredible amount of technology, that's now available, how has the whole process of managing competitive intelligence changed?
Look, managing the information, sorting it out, putting it in frameworks, all of that, it's helped. It's all been helpful. But to gather the insight, so I'd like to know, can AI answer, should I enter waste oil recycling and achieve an ROI of 18% 3 years? With AI, I don't think there is any technology at this point in time that can give you that answer. There is technology to help you sort the information out, to find the keywords, to do bits and pieces. But there's no technology that will help you interview people. See, until you interview people, Ash, people will give you projections, thoughts, what they're seeing, what's likely to come down a pipeline. It's not on a data. It's not there in data yet. And that's why I think there is no way at this stage that technology can deliver competitive intelligence.
Okay.
It can provide supporting data, but you still need a human to go out and speak to other humans to see what they're thinking and seeing, and to pull it together to say, so what does this mean in light of the decision that's being made?
Well said. And, I've spoken to many people. I've worked in large organizations. What are some of the challenges leaders face when it comes to handling and managing competitive intelligence?
I think you've hit the crux of the matter there, Ash. Personally, I think it's ego. They believe they know everything.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous. I keep thinking about the CEO of Barnes and Noble. Did he know about Amazon? I'm thinking about the CEO of the Hilton Hotels. Did they know about Airbnb? I'm thinking of the taxi companies around the world. Did they understand Uber? And they're just really common examples, I don't think they did.
That is so true. But then there is another element of competitive intelligence, which is how do you ensure the information you're gathering is done ethically?
That's training.
Mm.
That's training. So I think there is the Academy of Competitive Intelligence outside of the US, and they train people and certify them as competitive intelligence professionals. There's the Council of Competitive Intelligence Fellows. There's in Germany, there's also the Institute of Competitive Intelligence. I think, and there's of course SCIP, which is Strategic and Competitive Intelligence Professionals in the US. All of these organizations make it very clear of ethics. We abide. I made all my people that worked with me sign ethical commitments, and I give it to all my clients.
Very well said.
I think it's very important. I think you raised a very good point. It's not about espionage. If you need to resort to espionage, it means you're doing something illegal versus being smart around the way you're making a decision.
Well said. And the other aspect that I've often seen leaders try to figure out is, once they have collected competitive intelligence, which could be data, it could be anything else about what the company or your competitor is doing, how can they use it for overall strategic planning?
What you've just told me is, if any company collects any competitive information without a particular decision in mind, it's a waste of time and energy.
Right.
It's useless. So you cannot incorporate it in your strategy. You cannot leverage it. You need it for a specific decision you're looking to make. So let's say your strategy is to enter, let's say, a new market, a new area, a new market in Asia, hypothetically. So which country do you want to go in first? Okay, now you do your study as to how should I enter, let's say, hypothetically, Malaysia. Okay, now we want to know who are the players in this area, how should we enter? Now you can incorporate that into your strategy of how you will enter the Malaysian market. But to just collect competitive information, I mean, that's, whoopee-doo, waste of time. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. The other aspect of competitive intelligence is that, can it be used to predict and adapt to market changes?
Absolutely. One of the key things about competitive intelligence is that it's future-oriented. So one of the projects we did was looking at where companies were heading in a particular market over the next 3 to 5 years. So we spoke to futurists, we spoke to people to identify where was the main focus, where was the main funding going, the research and development. So we were able to say with some accuracy that XYZ company was going in this direction, or that these 3 companies were all putting their money in that basket there. So that enables an executive to then say, well, if they're doing that, that leaves a gap over here. Let me go over here. But we spoke to futurists. We spoke to people who understand and look at trends. And that's important when you want to do strategy long term. What are the trends? And there's some, there's driving forces analysis, which is a great technique to understand the trends that are coming, or the forces that are shaping an industry. So, academics have developed the analytical techniques for this.
Well said.
Just need to know them.
Yeah, I agree. So I have time for 2 more questions for you.
Yes, sir.
My next question is, in what ways can competitive intelligence support customer retention strategies?
That's an interesting question. Can competitive intelligence support customer retention? Yes, it can, through a technique that I've used repeatedly called win-loss analysis. Now, win-loss analysis is to understand why you win deals or why you lose deals. So I'm going to assume customer retention is about big business retaining big business customers.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm putting that as a preamble.
Mm.
So we want to know, why are we losing big customers or why are we winning big customers?
Mm.
If you can understand that,
Mm.
then you know how to keep your customers.
Mm.
And so win-loss analysis is a technique of calling customers you have and customers you've lost as to why they've worked with you, why they're not working with you.
Mm.
That predicts and tells you what customers are looking for and how to retain them.
Mm. Mm. Well said.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
And, the whole thing that I've always believed is that if you have some understanding of what your competitor is doing, it is up to you as leaders to be able to adapt within your own boundaries, what direction you will take, how you will lead your team, what
Good.
resources planning you will do. And it has to be, as you said a few minutes back, there has to be a very clear strategy of where you want to get if you want to use this information.
Ash, the thing that always concerns me is that I don't want to know what my competitors are doing. Really not interested. It's too late. I want to know what my competitors intend to do because I can pick them at the post.
Sure.
So it's a very different mindset from understanding what my competitors are doing to what my competitors' intentions are. Because, we all put out a lot of hype, a lot of PR, a lot of this kind of information, to fool the market, shareholders, whatever. I want to know, what do my competitors intend to do?
Absolutely. And therefore, your response gives me a segue to my last question,
Okay.
which is, how do you balance the need for competitive intelligence with the risk of information overload?
Easy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the right question.
Okay.
Easy. Ash, it all starts with the question. If someone says, should I enter waste oil? Tell me who's who in the zoo in waste oil versus should I enter waste oil and can I achieve an ROI? If you get a question, tell me who's who in the zoo in waste oil, you will keep collecting information.
Yeah.
When you understand the decision that's being made, Ash, very different collection process. And it's the decision. It is the decision that drives the collection of the data and the information. It's the decision that defines the analytical way you're going to analyze all of that. You get that wrong, the whole thing falls over.
Very well said. Very well said. Babette, on that note, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for speaking to me at such length about decision-making, about competitive strategy, competitive intelligence. And I love the way you so easily explain competitive intelligence and how important it is to be able to use it wisely.
Absolutely.
Thank you also for speaking to me about GALE.
Yes.
Assumption, information, and limiting belief. I love this little acronym. Thank you for speaking to me, and good luck to you.
Thank you, Ash, very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for The Brand Called You.